This episode is brought to you by Covenant Eyes. A couple of days ago, the Wall Street Journal had this headline: Why Americans Aren't Having Babies. What are the reasons, and are they good ones? Let's find out in this episode of The Catholic Money Show. This came up just the other day. I was looking through the news. I saw this. I clicked it immediately. And oh boy.
A doozy.
It's kind of, I read it. I was just kind of down afterwards. We go through this article. There's a link down in the show notes to it. And it's okay if you don't have a Wall Street Journal subscription. This link will get you in to see this article for free. So definitely check it out, and you can be sad too. But we'll go through some of it here. They go through, they're talking about, yes, the fertility rate is down, but what's really interesting is, sure, people are having less kids, but less women are giving birth to kids overall. And that is like the fastest, the biggest contributor to the recent decline in population growth is just not having kids and not having kids by choice.
Right. And this has been a trend that has been, again, ongoing for many, many years. And not just in the United States of America. This is something we're seeing worldwide. And, you see headlines about it. And there's countries falling all over themselves to try to fix this and solve it. Mm-hmm. Even to the point of come live in a small town in Italy and we'll pay you $20,000. Sounds kind of good, doesn't it? But they know and understand that if this continues to be a trend, it's very dangerous for our civilization. Mm-hmm. And dare I say it's dangerous for us as human persons.
Yes.
And those embracing this trend.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, you could just go to the economic side of it. Well, having less people means there'll be less demand for things and services, so the economy will start to shrink. There won't be, if you have a Social Security-like system where current working people pay in to help pay for the care for non-working people, well, you're going to have trouble. More working people than you have or more people to support than you have paying in. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to go well. Right. You've got all sorts of issues just on the economic side of it, let alone the cultural, the social, just the personal.
The spiritual.
The side of this, yes. So you could say, yes, it's bad for the economy. It's bad for the country because of this and that. I think it's just bad for people. Mm-hmm. It's not just bad, you're doing this thing that's going to hurt these other things or these other people. It's going to hurt you doing this.
Yes.
Now, we're not saying, of course, that your life is automatically incomplete and you are messing it all up if you do not have a kid, right? Like maybe you're not even married. Maybe you're single. Maybe you have infertility. You're not less than a human. You're not meeting your potential or anything like that. Don't hear us incorrectly here. But the types of decisions that people are making in this article are harming them. Mm-hmm. So I want to go through a little bit of this article, and then we'll talk about it here. So again, there's a link in the notes here that you can go and check this out. But it goes through, I think there's 5 or so couples that they pop in and out of talking to, or we hear from in the article, mixed in with a couple, demographers and all of that. But the first couple, they don't have kids.
You're kind of presenting this to me.
Sure.
And them. I didn't read the article. I kind of wanted to be a little more shocked.
I took notes.
I know. I wanted to be a little more shocked.
Okay. So there's these folks, and this is interesting. Every one of the couples they talk to, we'll save that for the end.
Okay.
Ooh.
I know what you're going to share.
Let's see if you can notice it. All right. So we've got, I didn't underline their names. But anyway, this first couple they show says, in New Orleans, 42-year-old Beth Davis epitomizes some millennials' new views. Quote, I wouldn't mess up the dynamic in my life right now for anything, especially someone that is 100% dependent on me, she says. That's who you should mess up the dynamic in your life for, because they are so dependent on you.
Honestly, I mean, when I hear that, I hear, and I don't know this woman, right? I don't know her from Adam.
Of course not. Or Eve.
But yeah, I see a type A choleric who likes control, who likes rhythm and routine, and those things have kind of become ends in of themselves. And when you're gripping so tight to those things, and the perfect routine and rhythm and control has now become where you find your source of identity, satisfaction, and worth, well, yeah, why would you ever do anything to disrupt those? Her standard of what actually matters is warped. And those things that they're nice, don't we all like to be in control, but should we be? I feel for this woman, because there will be a time in her life outside of children where she will lose control in a big way, because we all experience these, and she will be lost.
Yeah.
When that happens, because of kind of how she set up her life to worship her schedule, her routine, etc.
Yeah, listen, it says, Beth Davis loves her niece and nephew, but she isn't envious of how much time and money her siblings spend bouncing between volleyball tournaments, baseball games, and trips to the mall to replace outgrown clothes. Wouldn't want to have to go clothe those kids. I mean, she's already going to go to the mall to get her own clothes.
Also,
anyway.
If you're still, it's 2024 and inflation is rampant. If you're still going to the mall to clothe your kids, you need to tune more.
If you still have them all.
Tune into our podcast. You got to be going to consignment sales, thrift stores. Where's your village from your parish where people are just handing down sizes of clothes? You can clothe your children for a whole lot less. That does not require a several $100 trip to the mall.
Yes. So it says they moved to, she and her husband, Jacob Edenfield, 41, they moved to New Orleans a year ago in search of the city's joie de vivre and other childless millennials. With a combined income of $280,000, the couple is able to put about $4,500 a month toward what they hope will be a mid-50s retirement. Another $2,600 pays rent on a sprawling Creole townhouse. The remaining $8,000 or so, much of which they assume would have been eaten up by child rearing, goes primarily toward enjoying their lives.
I'm going to say this. I'm sorry. $8,000 a month. I'm going to guarantee 75% of our listeners are raising not only one or two kids,
their whole families,
but maybe their whole family on about that much money. Really.
To think, so they're just, it's just, and much of that would be taken up. And then not even taken up, not even used, but eaten up. Isn't taken away from them, wasted, gone somewhere else away from them. They can't have their, cash paid BMW, their $700 out to eat dinners, their high-end wellness center, because they want to do their own thing. It says now, and then they've infected their siblings. It says one of their siblings has been inspired by them to remain childless. It says while they love, this is the sibling, while they love kids, they would rather focus on being the best possible aunt and uncle. And this is a quote. And then I still get to have my autonomy and routine. She's in Maine. These people live in New Orleans. Where's the other sibling, I wonder, with the kids, where you get to be the aunt and the uncle? Are they in town? I don't even know.
No, I'm sorry. You're not aunt and uncle of the year if you have to fly in.
This
you
is
hardly
crazy.
see each other, and you don't
they
see
might
each
be in
other
the same town. We don't know. We don't know because neither of these guys have kids.
We don't know.
So that's just the one couple, right? That we're looking at me. I want to have this thing. I want to have this real cush life, and kids would just eat all that up.
To be honest, I mean,
if anybody's worried about the cost of having a kid, like it shouldn't be them.
No, it certainly shouldn't be them.
They're not going to notice.
It's inappropriate. And this is not, I wouldn't say finances are probably the driving motivator. It's not. It's about the control. Mm-hmm. It's about getting to live a certain lifestyle. And I'd say right now we're in a unique window where that is being worshipped. You know, we've talked about it here on the show before, things like lifestyle design or people really, really wanting to earn a high income so they can essentially just seek pleasure. Mm-hmm. I mean, right? You know, the enemy to our souls will oftentimes pursue either power, pleasure, or wealth to be the things that take us away from God and our purpose.
Yes.
And for this couple, it is pleasure and being able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, where I want to do it. I want to experience all these things. And I do think that is a huge drive for a lot of millennials, the generation of experiences and not stuff. And they really are that epitome of, I want to go to these luxury restaurants. I want to go on these trips and vacations. I want to go on these shopping excursions. But what we're going to see for millennials and really anybody who's ever pursued this, when we treat created things as ends in of themselves, it creates an endless chasm that cannot be fulfilled. It creates a black hole, and it'll never be enough. Mm-hmm. And I just pray that she wakes up to that reality sooner than later, because when they do realize that, I don't know what'll happen to their marriage, to themselves. You know, this is where you end up seeing somebody having a midlife crisis, redesigning their life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because they're always looking for fulfillment where fulfillment is not found.
They're looking to the things they're doing in their life to find that fulfillment. We see there's a video, it's a really short clip, but you can watch it on the article where, you know, it's like, she's like, oh, they're charmed or whatever to have this life without kids. And they can focus on themselves.
Well, I think, yeah.
And then
themselves.
And then the husband's like, for each other. But she said, but it's like,
she doesn't even look at him, but he looks at her when he says, like, we have more time for each other.
Feel a little bad.
I felt real bad.
But she goes, oh yes, and you know, he likes to meditate every day. And then the article says, you know, and then a lot of times in the evening he goes down to the bar to work on his novel. As if people with kids can't get a little time away for themselves to pray or meditate or write a book.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, we've been setting alarms and getting up to have morning prayer. And we did write a book during the pandemic when we didn't have any childcare.
And
we get out for dates, and we go on trips with each other. Mm-hmm. It's a false dichotomy, what they've bought into.
If you are approaching this or you've got temptations to look at things like this, if we are looking to there's this picture of them, looking at each other. If we're looking just to our spouse for our happiness and our fulfillment, there's a lot of different ways, and reasons, but you're going to be disappointed. And if you're thinking, oh, we'll just have this amazing, life together and have all this fun, and maybe you do, but one day you won't, because you're going to get old and they're going to require your help. There is very likely someday when there will be someone 100% dependent on you. And if you don't practice it now, if you don't get used to that now, what's going to happen later on when it happens? Or how are you going to feel about yourself if you're the person who is dependent on, whether it's your spouse or maybe if they've already, even if they've already passed, on someone else? How are you going to be able to understand your need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, God forbid there's not an accident where either of these spouses become disabled. Mm-hmm. You know, it would be the end of what they've built. But again, it's because they've sought themselves and their own preferences. And that's not the point of our lives. It's also not the point of marriage. We'll get more into that in a bit.
Yeah. So this other couple two, Giovanni Perez and Mariah Sanchez, they're in their 30s, and he wants to have kids. And it says, where is it?
Is it what you underlined? You underlined.
I underlined a lot of things. Sorry. Oh yeah, they're right with their names. Yeah. He's been trying to convince his wife, Mariah Sanchez, 32, that they're ready to become parents. People less well off than us are having kids, and I see it every day. And I'm pretty sure we could do better than most of them, says Perez. Sanchez isn't sold. And it says, before she has kids of her own, she wants to move from the couple's one-bedroom apartment into a bigger place. She also hopes to climb the ranks at the advertising agency where she works, ideally doubling their combined income of $100,000. All right. So, and I know what it's like for a child whose parent wasn't prepared for them. All right. So there's this idea of wanting to be prepared. So we have this fear, maybe in this first couple, of
don't want to disrupt.
I'm fearful of losing all this fun stuff that I'm doing, the control in my life. Now we're looking at a fear of
I'm not ready.
We're not ready. It's not going to be good enough for the kid. We're not going to be able to do this thing. We're not going to be able to provide. Which is silly. Kids can live in apartments, even small ones.
They can even be welcomed into families with low incomes or even no incomes, you know. Sometimes people lose their job, this, that, the other. It doesn't mean you should stop being open to life. You can always get another job. Yes. You may not always have another window to have kids.
That's right. Yeah. So there's this fear of we need more money. We need more space. I mean, I always just think back to your dad. Probably your mom too. I just never saw the house that she grew up in. But I think of your dad. He had how many brothers and sisters?
There were 8.
So 8 kids. And I'll tell you what, this house, it's a small house.
It was maybe like 1,300 square foot, including the basement. And I think they redid it a couple of times.
To add in, I know they added a bedroom down there.
Yeah, 4 bedrooms total. One of them a non-conforming in the basement. The other one's very small.
Yes. And to think that, they raised 8 kids in that house. It's incredible. And I've never heard your dad or any of his siblings complain of, there was just no space growing up, or I was always stepping over my brother and my sisters.
No, you hear about how they had fun staying up late at night talking. We inherited the bunk beds where my dad shared it with a brother, and they carved their names into the wood.
Great example for our kids. Thanks a lot.
But yeah, it was not a negative in their life. They talk about their childhood very positively. And there were families just as big living in just as small of homes right by their parish. You know, that was their life, their parish family in their neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this, we're looking at, and people talking about, the drag on their life, or they're not sure about the finances. They mention in here, sure, some costs have gone up, of course. And childcare, especially if you're both trying to work and you need to have a childcare, like that has risen a ridiculous amount. Yes.
Yep. People are getting more creative now than ever because of that.
But what has also increased is the intensity or the what we're doing for the kids. Says, yes, a lot of this, people say kids are more expensive, but a lot of this comes from parenting becoming more intensive. So people are spending more on their kids, says this person. She's an economist at University of Maryland. Because we're doing the travel, volleyball, and the softball, and the drama workshops, and we got to get, the after school math tutors, and we're doing so many more things, trying to cram so much more on whatever our kids. Now, yes, it is getting more expensive, but all those things are optional. They're not necessary. We've got one here.
You can always find a way to cultivate your child's giftedness without hurting your budget. You really can.
Yes, absolutely. There's a couple in here. It says, this is for another one, a different couple. This is, couple 3. Trevor Galco and Carrie Ann Meslar, 42. Always thought they'd have kids, but then just never really happened in their lives. They started dating. They were kind of older, figured they were too old and set in their existing lives to start a family of their own. Like you saw earlier, much of their disposable income now goes to travel, including recent trips to Greece, Spain, and Guatemala in the span of 3 months. It says, part of the justification for leaning into her kid-free reality was wanting to avoid making the same sacrifices she saw her parents make.
Oh.
She says she can't remember her mom or dad buying anything new for themselves while she was growing up, so they could afford for her and her 3 siblings to join sports leagues and attend out-of-state colleges. I don't think I could really live up to the example they set. Or, I think I could, but I don't think it would bring me the same joy, she says.
Oh, her parents were not sitting there thinking, ugh.
If I only had a new jet ski or whatever it was. Yeah. And she was a kid.
So sometimes you don't understand.
She might not have
really grasp.
seen them buy the things.
Sure.
She might not have understood what they were doing. And I look back and, we have our different ideas of why something is the way it is when we're kids. And we look back on them, if we can remember them, we're like, oh yeah, that was crazy. Mm-hmm. That necktie wasn't holding on the guy's head or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of...
What?
Yeah, some weird thing. So who knows? I mean, and maybe she had perfect recall and amazing observational skills, and they did withgo a lot of new things during her childhood. That's all right. It's okay, and I'm sure, as she does seem that she saw the joy it brought them in the sacrifice. And there's so many other sacrifices, and not to say this lady is just crazy and inhuman or anything, but I'm sure she's asked to sacrifice every day. She's sacrificing, I'm guessing, in some way in her marriage, saying, she's sacrificing this and that to live a life with someone else. We're all called to sacrifice. And so we shouldn't be afraid of it. That is actually where we find ourselves the most, when we make a gift of ourselves to someone else, whether they're our spouse or a kid, someone. That is where we find our truest self, as we are reflecting most Jesus. Yeah,
the sacrifice of Christ. But even Christ, he was, mocked, even by those close to him. They didn't understand. They couldn't comprehend why would sacrifice and death be the path to resurrection and life. They could not comprehend that. But that's why, Jesus, he just turns all these things on their head. But the enemy to our souls will still come to us and try to convince us that way is not which leads to life. We need to pick our own path. We got to forge our own way. That's going to be what leads to life, but only it's smoke and mirrors. It leads to death. We only find ourselves in a sincere gift of self. That's JP2. And it's not lost on me that we are recording this episode while I'm holding an incredibly fussy baby.
He is a cranker, man.
He's a cranky. It's just because we've been traveling a lot lately. And usually he's sleeping, and we tried to time his nap right during this podcast, but he wouldn't have it. And so we're going to have a crabby baby with us during this episode. And it is hard. I don't want to... From any of these couples that are afraid of what children will ask of us, I don't want to sit back and sugarcoat it. I think we've done a fair bit of that sometimes in the church.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Children are just such a blessing. Oh, it's amazing. Just sharing the good stuff. When it's like, wait, no, I'm being ground to a pulp here. I am the mustard seed that falls to the ground and dies daily. But grain of wheat.
It's okay.
I got to mix up.
The mustard seed also has to...
The grain of wheat. I'm getting ground underfoot here. But it is so good for me that I am. And that's how I am being made a saint. The process there. And I want to go back just quick to the couple that was like, we need to be more prepared. Sometimes there's this myth. It could apply to parenting. It could apply to business. It could apply to developing a skill. You think you need to get your ducks in a row in order to pursue this, that, or the other. But really, it's the pursuit of the thing that gives you the skills, the experience, and the confidence to do the thing.
Yep.
So you'll never actually be a good parent until you start parenting. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But people think somehow you're going to acquire these skills before you're actually in the arena. You're not. You got to get in the arena of marriage or of your field of expertise, your job. You know, what college grad ever said my bachelor's degree prepared me? Never. You have to, the whole preparedness lie prevents people from ever becoming great in what they're called to do. And they never step out because they're so afraid and feel like they need to get their ducks in a row. Really, they just need to step and figure it out along the way. The process is what will give you the confidence and skills.
Yes. What you said about sacrifice and being, falling to the ground and dying and being ground up and all that.
Yeah.
If we're doing, in some ways, any relationship the right way, that should be happening. It's not just kids.
Yes, right.
If, I love you, babe. Being married can be hard. I don't get to stay up as late as I want and watch the movies I want. I can't eat all the junk I want to eat. I can't play the music I want as loud as I want. There's a lot of things I don't get to do anymore. And a lot of things I get asked to do. Foot rubs. Cleaning.
We just walked like 15,000 steps at the Eucharistic Congress. That's not a usual request.
Yeah, it was unusual. So there's it's asked of me, but boy, oh boy, I know I am a better person because of all these asks and sacrifices I've made of not eating chicken wings every day. But I'm more me. I become who I'm meant to be through this, and it's good for me. It's better for me to have something asked of me rather than just whatever the heck I want.
Or what can you get from other people?
Oh,
without considering what you can give to them.
Yeah, there's another couple here where, again, it's this kind of a similar thing here of, we wouldn't get to do what we want to do. It says, we can throw parties with like tons of people. It says, go out with friends whenever he wants. I don't have, it just makes my life easier. I have a social life because I don't have these dang kids.
By the way, you can have one heck of a social life, even with kids.
Because of the kids.
Because of the kids. Because you meet people at the sport event or at the school or in the homeschooling co-op. I feel like our village, quote unquote, because we have kids. I mean, maybe we're just in a particular area of the country. I don't know. But I could name 50 families that I think we share life with halfway regularly that are incredible. And I wouldn't have known them had we not met them through our kids.
Exactly. And so we see there's one more couple in here, and it's interesting. They kind of add one more little thing to the mix, one more little argument for not having kids. They certainly get into the money one, which we've talked about. And I'll say there's this one. This is how they end it, and it's just depressing. And this is an engaged couple. It says Lubenthal, 27-year-old asset manager, calculated they could retire at 55 with the same spending power if they don't have kids. He then did the math to account for 2 children, factoring costs of daycare, college, clothing, and other essentials. That pushed their retirement back by 13 years to age 68. That's a big gap, he says. His conclusion, retire early and skip kids. Man.
So a 13-year, he's not having children based on a mathematical equation. Without being creative whatsoever and thinking, how might I still retire at 55 with kids? Because there certainly could be a way to solve that. If he felt convicted on retiring at that age, just think outside the box a little and you'll be able to do it.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, what's this thought of retirement and just going to go play even more now, or that's a whole other podcast.
That's another podcast. Yes. The American commercial for retirement.
The secondary adolescence.
Second college-like experience. It's actually no good for us or society or, one another. So that's a separate podcast.
That'll be next time. But then it pops up here for maybe their main reason for not having kids. This is Allie. She says, with geopolitical issues, climate change, it's like, what are you bringing them into? And then dropping them off and saying, good luck, says Mills, who's 27 and works for a tech company. There's no real confidence that things are going to get better.
Newsflash. It's always going to be
welcome to the world, man.
It's going to be a hot mess until the day Jesus returns.
This argument, if things aren't amazing, things aren't perfect, what's the point of even being alive? If you really believe that, then one should be advocating for mass suicide because it's just not worth living around here anymore. But that's crazy. We can see that's a little bit crazy. So it's just.
But that's where the enemy of our souls would
love
ultimately take it. Absolutely, despair. That's where despair takes us.
Yes. So it's the world. Yes. Oh, there's this. There's that. It's like, there's always been. It's always been wild. I'm happy I'm here and alive, even though the world's crazy. And what if your kid is one that the Lord wants to use to make things better?
The next great saint.
If they're not born, they can't do it. So there's a kind of maybe the three reasons we found here in this article of, well, the world's a mess. The kids cost a lot, so I can't do what I want, or I need more money. I need to be ready for them, or just, well, I just want to live my life and do what I want. And I think kids will be a drag on that. So it seems that the answer to why Americans aren't having babies is, sadly, we're just a little too selfish to have babies.
Would you say that we have a warped idea of freedom?
Sure, I want to do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, as much as I want, blah, blah, blah. I want me. Yeah.
What is freedom, though?
We're taught that freedom is the ability, the ability to choose what is best for us.
To choose the good.
To choose
the
good.
right.
Yes. That's real freedom. Not freedom to do something, not freedom from obligations or needs or whatever.
It can be a form of slavery.
Absolutely.
And many of these couples, I would say, they're enslaved.
Seems like they could be,
to their own schedules, control, desires, tastes, desires for pleasure, etc. They're enslaved to them. And that's why they cannot. In the enemy of our souls, that's exactly where he wants us. Worshipping those types of things, our whims, our fancies, our desires, etc., because then it never calls us to become who we're actually meant to be, created to be.
Yeah. So again, this is the deliberate choice in married life to not even consider children. Talk about, being open to life. This is closed off, locked the door, built a brick wall. On the other side of it, closed to life. Closed to fruitfulness in that way. And we're asked to give of ourselves, to be fruitful. Now, this was interesting. I brought this up when we were in the car yesterday. And you asked a question. I thought, well, that's great for the podcast. And we will answer this after a real quick break, but we've been married almost 13 years. We've experienced infertility the whole time.
And likely will.
And likely will keep experiencing that. So even being, 100% open to life and all that, there's very high likelihood we would be and would remain into the future no kids.
Childless, just like these couples.
Now, not through any choice of our own, certainly.
No.
So not in the same spot, but you know what? It's not a sin not to end up without kids, if you're open to life and doing all this stuff,
The church did not ask or require us to ever have children
Yes.
if they didn't come naturally.
Yes, it's not a requirement to have a kid in order to get into heaven or be in good standing with the church or anything like that. So we could be in this spot. We could, and I mean, like you said earlier, like they're right. Having kids asks a lot of us. It asks a lot of our budget. There's a lot of things. So we're going to get into that a little bit and answer the question of, well, then why the heck did we choose to go through all the trouble that is involved with the much seemingly harder process of adoption to grow our family when we could just be off traveling the world?
Could have had a Lambo and been in Greece.
So we'll be back to answer that question after this. Big thank you to Covenant Eyes for sponsoring this episode of the Catholic Money Show. Victory by Covenant Eyes provides a clear view into the digital behavior of those in your household. It's screen accountability. Technology scans each screen, analyzing it for explicit content. So if it's on the screen, it gets seen. Ooh. Covenant Eyes, you can use that. It blocks those images and can put them in a report, so an ally of those who might be struggling can see the report, can talk to them, can help move beyond this behavior you don't want to do. And Covenant Eyes is offering our listeners 30 days totally free when you sign up using our code WalletWin30. So all one word, WalletWin30. You can also go to walletwin.com/CE and use promo code WalletWin30. But the screen accountability, this is huge. No more hiding behind proxy sites or sites that filter that the filter list doesn't know about to rat on you about. Like there's no little clever workarounds. If it's on the screen, it gets seen. This is huge. So you can use it on your PC. You can use it on your Mac. You can use it even on your Android smartphone. For iOS users out there, it can take screenshots like in Safari and in the Covenant Eyes browser app. Everything else, though, it can't see because Apple just has that sucker locked down too tight. So Android is the way to go in the Mac. We've got it running on our computers, on our Android devices. It's incredible. So it's all detectable. It's all find outable, which means it's easier to move forward and find freedom. All right. So it provides peace of mind by monitoring and reporting the digital activity it's effective. It's respectful of privacy. Your allies don't see the full screenshot, so they're not going to be able to see your banking info or whatever it is. It's blurry, but it is enough to know what's going on if they need to know what's going on. So it's perfect. And every account includes 10 users. So you can have the people in your family. You look at this like a big old family plan that you can get people on. It's awesome. Try it out for an entire month using our code WalletWin30. Take advantage of this. Start protecting yourself, your family, the people around you today. Visit walletwin.com/CE for Covenant Eyes and use promo code WalletWin30 for 30 days free. That's walletwin.com/CE, promo code WalletWin30. We are back and we answered the question in the first half of the show, why Americans aren't having babies. Fortunately, selfishness. Thinking they need to be more ready than perhaps you actually would need to be. And that the world is all messed up and what's the point anyway? We talked about why those weren't great options or reasons or anything like that. But one reason some people don't have babies is they're not getting pregnant. They have infertility. And that has been our experience so far. We have raised, or raising, I guess, four babies. We've had four babies. Who knows if we'll have any more? But they haven't been through birth. They've been through adoption. And that is a very, intentional choice. In the comments, and there are a lot of comments on this article. One of them was somebody was, it's like, oh yeah, it's more expensive now. You got all this financial planning now to make blah, blah, make the decision before conception or whatever. And he goes, back in our day, it was just as possible of a consequence after too many martinis or something like that. Like it's just what happened.
Well, okay, continue. I have a thought there.
So it's just kind of a normal part of life that now we're kind of somehow thinking is more of an option or anything. But anyway, sometimes it isn't just the natural course of things. And so in some ways, you and I, Amanda, have signed up, opted in, very hard opt-in to more suffering, more costs financially, emotionally, etc. A harder, probably, I think you could probably say this, in many ways, a harder life.
Absolutely.
By very intentionally and purposefully choosing to be parents. Doing in some ways, like the opposite, in some ways, of what these couples are doing. What is wrong with us? What are we thinking? What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking this baby's doing gymnastics in my hand, and I actually can't form a thought right now. I was hoping you'd do the thinking.
I can do a little thinking. I can do some thinking.
I can't get him into a position that he'll chill.
So I've been thinking about this since you asked me yesterday. And you were off, I don't know what, with the other kids or the dentist or whatever. And I was home with our boy and just rolling around on the ground, looking at each other, tickling, laughing, all that stuff. And it's the best thing. It's so fun. So there's just it calls, I don't know, man. It just calls something out of me to be better, and it just makes life so much better. It's so rich. Oh boy, does it get hard. And there are lots of times where it's very hard with the kids. But boy, there are some golden moments, man, that just make it so good. And every day I wonder, what is it going to be today? What's going to be so great today? And then the fun of not, of course, wishing away today, but to look forward into the future as they get older, as they are adults. Like, what are they going to be like? What are those relationships going to be between us? What are the things we're going to talk about and experience together? It's so rich a life. Yeah, you know what? I don't have a moped. But you know what? I got these kids, and they are so much fun.
You'll have a moped someday.
Oh, you heard it here, folks. We got a witness.
Oh, you know you'll have a moped again. Hi, buddy. All right, maybe I've got him calm enough to actually form a sentence here. So wait, why? The question is,
why did we choose to do this?
Why did we choose to do this?
We could have, with no fault, no moral implication, no sin, no selfishness, no moral implication.
Sure. Yeah.
Just not had kids.
Yeah.
Been dinks.
Just going back to probably a little more than 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when we really began the process. Mm-hmm. So when we were battling, infertility in the early days of our marriage, I think just both of us, we felt excited about our marriage, loved being married. We were having a blast. We were having fun. We were going on trips. We were in control of our schedule, having date nights, doing all the things.
Yeah.
But again, because we understand and understood at the time what the purpose of marriage is, it's a sacrament given to us by God to show us something. And we know that the church gives us the sacrament of marriage to be a reflection of Christ and his church. And really the Trinitarian love that exists between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so we knew that marriage was ordered toward children. And even though we were not being blessed with them, we understood that reality. and we hoped to have children. And just both of us very easily came to the conclusion of whatever we need to do, morally, we want to have children. And that's what we want to spend our life doing. It's love multiplying love. We had something in our marriage that we knew was not going to be diminished by the addition of children. It would only be expanded. And I think that a little bit of our culture has lost the plot on that right there. The idea of expanding your family is now seen as a threat to the marriage, or to, we can't add another kid because we won't be able to love them well enough. It's going to be a division equation instead of a multiplication equation.
Yeah. I was just telling the boy earlier today when I was telling him how much I loved him. And it's true. Our hearts grow, and we love more than ever before. And at that same time, it didn't just make a little bit more room for him in my heart, but as it grew, it allows me to love his sisters even more than I loved them before. I didn't have to take a little bit of each of how much I love each of them so that I could love him a little. Yeah. I didn't just expand the pie by a slice so that I could also love him just as much. But the whole thing got bigger. He's got a slice, and all their slices got bigger too.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Also, something that, we understood, still do, is just that, the family is the building block of society. And this goes back to, when you brought up economics, or just human, social, economical, political. We are not just shells our family is not just on an island. We are part of the building block of society, and children are part of that. And so we knew that, even though we are not here blessed, the Lord is not allowing us to conceive and grow our family, we knew that there would be children and, that others would conceive but not be able to give what they would want to. And they would want to be making an adoption placement. And that's when we said, why wouldn't we say yes to providing that home, providing what these parents so long and wish they could provide for this child, but for one reason or another can't?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we say yes to do that? And so that was kind of just how we got the process started.
Yeah.
James is here for it.
Yeah, he sure is. Yeah. It's interesting.
He's got a lot to say about this.
We see these couples in this article. They have some sort of an idea, however it is that they understand parenthood, incorrect or not. And they go, I don't think I want that. But as we were looking at it, we saw parenthood, and I think we understood it at least as best as we could without the experience of the trials and the sacrifice and all of that. But we looked at it and go, I think I would really like some of that. I want to do that. And so it's seeing it and choosing it. And
sorry, I have one last thing to add, but I know you can finish your thought.
Okay. I do. So this is a separate thought though. And everything you said was totally real and true. But I do just want to make sure that no one is mishearing us in thinking that we are saying you must have kids. If you are infertile, you must adopt in order for your relationship to have a chance at being fruitful or pleasing to the Lord. That is not true. You are a family.
You are.
Yeah.
I guess what I would love to add to that, we didn't just rush headlong. One does not just adopt, right? We want to go back to that Lord of the Rings meme from the 2010s. We took this to prayer.
Yes.
And we asked God, there could have been a very real reality where he said, no, actually, I want you guys to just be missionaries for the rest of your life, or I want you to go to this foreign country and just start spreading the gospel and building homes. And He could have said a lot of things to us. It could have been just stay here and do this or that. We both felt burdened that adoption was the next step. And so, if the Lord, he plants and gives desires and he waters and grows them. And if we're actively discerning well, he's not going to lead you astray. And so if you are called to adopt and you are in that situation of infertility, then he's going to plant the seeds, water them, and grow them through different experiences. And if he was not calling us to actually grow our family through adoption, I guarantee and trust that he would have planted different seeds, watered those and grown those, and they may not have included, actually bringing children into our home. Much like religious, sisters and brothers who are called to have many children. Nobody mistake these couples with like a religious sister who has control over her schedule. A true religious, they know and understand their spiritual motherhood and their spiritual fatherhood, and they take it seriously. And when they encounter others, whether they be children or adults, in a very real way, they feel responsible for those souls and to love them and to be a witness of Jesus to them. So could the Lord have called us to do something just like that? And would we have found a way to be fruitful in our marriage? Yes, we absolutely would have. He doesn't ask sterility of married couples or any disciple. And what I really see in these marriages is that spirit of sterility. Where's the fruit? And then what kind of fruit are you actually seeing from this? It isn't good. And, it really goes back to, this is a whole nother podcast episode, but when we introduced contraception, like you mentioned earlier, that guy, like, if you just had one too many margaritas, you might have had a baby 9 months later. That's when babies, were a result of...
When the natural consequence was still the natural consequence.
Yes, when sex and marriage went together, that, and babies were the end result of that.
Yes.
But when we separated those, when contraception came on the scene, is when we began to see the breakdown of the family. Because no longer was the marital act reserved for that sacramental relationship. It was now something that I could take wherever, whenever, without obligation, and then kids that came forth from that, it wasn't always great for them. We've seen this spin out over the last several decades, and the fruit has not been good.
Yeah.
And it's been so negative that I'll argue that these couples, they're running from it because they see the fruit. They see the fruit in some way.
Interesting, yes.
The bad fruit. So, but they've taken kind of a false gospel, if you will.
Yeah.
And gone down a different path that will not fulfill, and it will not lead them to life.
Okay, I got two more little things. One is very little. Is what if people noticed anything as we were reading through? I know we kind of teased that, but I wanted to kind of circle back in case people were waiting for the answer. Every one of these couples who are named in the article. Now, one is engaged, so they get a pass. All the rest are married and have different last names. And I don't think any of them it's some cultural thing other than, I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but the family should have a name. The family name. Yeah. Mom and dad and the kids would have the same name. And so right here we see there's not even a desire or a willingness to
unite your life.
To bring you up, to become one. We're still two. And so it's interesting. It's just very fascinating that was every one of them was like that. And then the last thing here, I think this came to me. And I really like it. We said, why Americans aren't having babies. As I was saying this earlier, and doing some of this too, I did feel a little bit like a political pundit person, on YouTube or on some cable network or whatever. These people, you can't believe them, blah, blah, blah. I didn't feel that great. And so, it's like, why aren't we having babies? Well, because we're selfish. I don't think that's the answer. Why Americans aren't having babies, I think it's because so many are afraid.
Fear.
Right? We said this a little bit, but I don't think it was said explicitly, right? They're afraid of losing control of their life. They're afraid of losing this social life they enjoy. They're afraid they're not ready. They're afraid it's going to just
stretch their bank
account. They're not going to be able to get by or to live the life they'd like or whatever it is.
They're afraid of not getting the promotion.
Of the stall out of their career. There's all these fears. Each one of these, it's a fear. But we know, right? Our Lord has told us, do not be afraid of anything. Whether it's, so heed that call to be fruitful, however it is. And if you're being asked to expand your family with children, however that might be, do not be afraid. And allow the Lord to work and to surprise you and to fill in the gaps and to answer the question marks and all that. I think that's what the big deal is.
It's fear.
It's fear. And we have no reason to fear.
We don't. And I think that, I know that was a good ending. So why am I trying to get a second ending here? I guess I wanted to bring it back to, let me just jump. What is it?
Let me piggyback on that.
Let me piggyback on your piggyback. I think because when you understand you're a disciple, you trust in our Heavenly Father, and you know that we're not made for this world, and you know that we're made for heaven. It changes a lot how we approach and handle. It should change how we understand and experience some of these fearful moments that will come our way this side of heaven. And I think it's so important that, our world, they don't have that perspective. And so, they're shaking in their boots. What confidence do they have other than I got to pull myself up by my bootstraps and figure this thing out? They don't have it. But that's where we, as Christian disciples, we have to have and remind them and show them that we were made for more, that we are heaven bound, that we're just on this side for a little bit, but the best is yet to come. And really to understand that we have that eternal perspective and to let that inform how we live our life now. And so, there's going to be trials, there's going to be tribulations, but we have that faith, we have that hope. And it's one that doesn't fail. And we have an obligation to communicate that to those around us, because these couples should not have to be desperate, shaken in their boots, having an article written about them. We're the disciples in their life, ready to tell them of the hope that awaits, the joy that awaits, and the love that awaits if they enter into their call as a married couple and allow their marriage to reflect that Trinitarian love with expansion.
Ooh.
It's because they don't know. And we have to tell them. We have to show them. We have to live that and witness it. Sorry to piggyback off your piggyback.
No, that's a good piggyback. Well, thank you. I think that does it. Thanks for riding with us on this one. Again, if you read the article, the link is in the notes. You can get that even if you don't have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. You can check it out. If you like this, I think you might like our other episodes, so check those out, CatholicMoneyShow.com, and share it with your friends. Yes, reviews are great, especially the 5-star ones. We still want one of those. But also just telling a friend, hey, you should check out the Catholic Money Show. Please. Send them a link, text it to them, email them, whatever it is. Grab their phone next time you see them and just subscribe them. Anything you'd like to do. But really, that one-to-one sharing is what really helps more people see the good stuff that you like. All right.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yep. Thank you very much for joining us. God bless you.
Until next time. Bye for now.
Thank you to Covenant Eyes for sponsoring this episode. Get 30 days free at walletwin.com/CE, promo code WalletWin30.